We had our eighth straight record semester over 3.0. We had a record fall GPA of 3.18, second highest spring ever. Those grades are in, and 3.2 overall, with 14 teams over a 3.0. And then this one is probably going to be more relevant with just all the transfer portal and everything else, but our exhausted graduation rate. And we have, over the past 5 years, 97% of our student athletes that have exhausted their eligibility with us have gotten their degrees. And as you know, it's so important. And you report on it, there's only a handful of student athletes that make it each year into the pros. And they like to say, the rest are going pro in things other than their sports. And so we want to have them leave with a great degree, and we want that at 100%. And we're going to be working hard to do that. Athletically, I think Nick has probably shared with you, we've had 18 of 20 sports made postseason play this year. That was a record, and 6 finished in the top 25, and 10 overall were in the top 25 and flirted with that during their seasons, with wrestling being the highest at ending up tied for 7th in the country. And also noteworthy that wrestling re-entered the Big 12 as a member, and that's going to be important for their future as well. But gymnastics, men's and women's swimming, softball, and volleyball ended up all in the top 25. So I'm excited about that, but also just looking forward to this coming year, because I think we have a great set of coaches. We have a lot of student athletes coming back that maybe have another year of eligibility that augment what the recruiting classes that our coaches have put together. So I think it could be a very, very fun and exciting year. It's something new as far as a new fact. We're, thanks to the amazing support of our donors and individuals and families and key individuals that have supported our program, are the combined Tiger Scholarship fundraising, along with gifts for other projects like the indoor. We're going to have a record year. The books haven't officially closed on FY21, so I don't have that exact number. That may be coming in the next week or so, but we're going to have the highest year in history of fundraising at Mizzou, and it'll break the record that we set in 2017. And just a lot of great stories, great gifts, great work by our staff and coaches in that. So it's the second time in 5 years we've reset the bar on that. And it couldn't come at a better time as far as our budget goes, as you know, and we had reported our budget revenues were down because of COVID impact, probably in the $30 to $35 million range. I think Tim just gave me a number. It was $35 million in revenue. We cut expenses by $16 million during that time, and then we also had, as reported by the SEC, we had a supplemental revenue distribution that gives us a shot at really balancing our budget for this year as they close the books. So they're still settling out and on projects and utilities and things like that, but I'm really proud of the effort that we put together, and it'll be something we can report on in the future in the next week or so. So the fundraising, for the indoor, that's going ahead, and bids are going to be out shortly on that, and in the next week, I would think, and then we'll be getting a better handle on what that's going to cost. But that fundraising really helps, and we've got other projects going on, most notably the basketball one. No one can see, it's down at the bottom of the arena, but all of the student athlete area, other than the weight room, is in renovation stages. And in fact, men's and women's basketball are flipping locker rooms. Their medical training area is being renovated. And so that should be done later in August. So a lot of work to do yet, but that's a change. And then obviously the indoor will be started later this fall, but the bids are going out. So really thankful for every dollar that we receive for our scholarships. That's our biggest need each year, and it's great support, and we're going to need to continue to grow that to provide resources for our teams to be competitive both in the conference and nationally. Then lastly, just NIL, and you probably all have 5 questions about it, and I don't know whether I'll be able to answer. It's like it was like the Christmas gift. No one knew exactly what it was going to be, and you had some ideas and thoughts and all that, and you were hopeful. But anyway, our Missouri NIL bill is on the governor's desk, and I really appreciate the support of our legislators to pull it together. And it was definitely needed, because in the space of the states and Congress and Supreme Court, and no one knew really what was going on, at least we had a state bill that was on the books that we could look towards and plan for. So that's helping guide us as we move forward from July 1st. So, where that leads intercollegiate athletics in the future, I'm not sure. I just got a report, I think I'll have to look, but I think it was 30 or more student athletes had signed and recorded agreements, and I'll check that fact before we're done. But and then before I open up for questions, just I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Nick publicly in front of all you for his efforts. He's worked all hours of the day, and I truly do know that it's all hours of the day on behalf of Mizzou, and from sunrise to sunset and every hour in between. So I really appreciate his efforts, and I think he wanted to have one more of these to put me through before he headed out and give you guys all shots at me. But Jacob Bell, who is new in the area, will be running communications in the short term, but we're going to miss Nick a lot, and I'll have him on speed dial. But with that, I'll open it up for questions.
We'll go to Colin O'Brien.
Hey, Jim, where did you kind of fall on this name, image, and likeness stuff before it passed officially by the NCAA, before they gave it the okay? And has anything happened in the first week or so that surprised you?
So I felt like it was something we needed to get to, where it needed to fall. I wasn't quite sure how we would get there, and we're still not totally sure on all that. But I think the ability for students to monetize their name, image, and likeness in a way that other students can, I think is very beneficial. The crux of the issue comes in, with other students aren't actively recruited, like in intercollegiate athletics, and have folks that are really interested in that. And so what are those guardrails to keep us in that area that gives them the opportunity to make money if there is to be made, and then but also avoid the pitfalls of things going down a road you don't want as well. So those are the challenges. I think Miami's agreement, where someone comes out and says, I'm gonna give X amount to each student athlete. I think that was something that people, I don't know how many people had thought of that before. So I think that's something that you could see more of. I think people are just learning how, and we're doing education. We'll have education session with business leaders and just others as we're allowed to do of here's how you can be involved in this space if you want to work with our student athletes.
We'll go to Gabe DeArmond.
Yeah, Jim, I had 2 questions about the name, image, and likeness. First of all, I know that it was very important to Eli, to the point where he was in Jeff City and talked to some people at one point. Can you tell us, in your conversations with him, why it was so important to him? And then the second part is, do you see this as something that widens the gap in college football, or has a chance to narrow it for programs maybe a little bit more like you guys, to close that gap, against the same 5 teams that have been in the playoff for 8 straight years or whatever it is?
I'll answer your second question first. I think it really allows. I don't think it widens the gap necessarily. I think there's going to be opportunity, across the nation with different teams, and so I think it puts things out in the open that you can see and allow, and I think there's going to be some student athletes that are disappointed that they thought they were worth this, and they're coming to the real world that they may not be the next Patrick Mahomes and being able to get deals with everyone and high level deals. So I think for us and Eli, as we looked at it, there was almost a vacuum gap, if you will, of how can we go ahead with this if the NCAA is not coming forward with legislation, if Congress, it looked like Congress was not going to do it. So it was very important for us, I think, to really have the state involved with that and have some guidelines that were similar to other states in the SEC.
Ben Arnett.
Jim, a lot of these NIL deals that we've seen in the early days have been like bulk package deals with like a large company and groups of athletes. And I know like athletic departments are kind of staying out of that. Do you ever see a day where there can be deals that roll through an athletic department and go out to student athletes and it's all kind of coordinated, or is that probably never going to happen?
It could, but I don't, hopefully not in the near future. We obviously, and you all are in that space, the media space, and we have our media rights agreements, and we do think there's probably going to be a negative impact to that with this. How much, I don't know. We'll see how it all falls out in the next year or two and see, but I don't think so. But I think things would have to change and evolve even further with Congress, I would say, before that happens.
We'll go next to Andrew Kaufman.
Hey, Jim, I'm curious what the vaccination rate is amongst the student athletes right now, and what the COVID protocols will look like for fall sports that are ready to get going here pretty soon.
Yeah, and Nick can help me out. I think generally, boy, if I had to look at it, we're probably at 50%. We need to get about 85% or more higher there. Some teams are higher than others, so I haven't done the numbers as far as the rates, but we're really having a concentrated effort on, to the example of, I've seen articles and heard about, Springfield and their the numbers and Arkansas. 99% of the hospitalizations are people that are not vaccinated, and 99% of the people that die from COVID have not been vaccinated. So just from a personal standpoint and from a person-to-person standpoint, I want everyone vaccinated, and I want everyone safe. So I think that's where we're going to continue to push. And then the SEC, if you're not at that level, then you're subject to contact tracing, and then I think the unfortunate example was NC State, what happened there and being pulled off the field basically, and we don't want that to happen with any of our sports.
6 programs currently are over 60% threshold at this point in time. A lot of the student athletes are not back on campus, so those numbers only really probably count for who's on campus at this time.
And real quick, is daily COVID? I guess it wasn't daily COVID testing, but I think you guys are doing 3 days a week. Is that going to continue for all the fall sports?
No, we wouldn't if they're vaccinated. They wouldn't be, but we will have testing going on for those that aren't vaccinated. Hopefully, it's a small number.
And the SEC Medical Task Force is still working very hard. They are going to go into their 2nd year, so they are not being disbanded yet. They've got work to do. We'll go back to Mitchell Forty.
Hey, Jim, I got a couple of quick questions on NIL for you. The first one's quick, so I'll ask that first. You mentioned the Missouri state law. At this point, I know that you're more under the NCAA waiver since that hasn't been signed into law. If it does go into effect here on August 28th, does that change much for you, or are your all's kind of protocols and guidelines already designed as if that law is in place?
That's exactly what we did. Our staff's a lot smarter than me, so they did that ahead of time, and that's where we put our guidelines and materials to our student athletes. So we expect that. I haven't heard that it's not going to be signed, and so I would expect it pretty soon, within the next week or two, I would imagine.
And then second one, this one might be a little harder to answer, but how do you think this changes the job of an athletics department? Is it suddenly more emphasis on promoting individual athletes? Is it, asking for donors to get involved in deals like you mentioned with the Miami thing, in addition to contributing to TSF? Do you have a sense for how this changes your job?
Yeah, the job has changed a lot. For a while, we were pandemic administrators, and so we want to be sport administrators, but it has changed it. It can't consume us. It can't consume the coaches, and so I think what we've been trying to do through our partnership with Open Doors is have that kind of education ahead of time, and so it doesn't dominate your thinking. Right now, there's no games or events going on, so it's dominating thought, and kids are thinking about it. But the ones that are lifting and practicing and all, they have less time for that, and they'll be focusing on their sport. So it won't. I don't think it'll dominate. We want to get it into a manageable level. Obviously, the past week since July 1st, it's been really busy. And the NCAA coming out the day before, and okay, where does that change what we had planned to do, and versus our state guidelines? And so we had a lot of that going on, and a lot of questions going on, and so I think those questions will diminish as we continue to move along.
We'll go next to Ahmad Hicks.
And just I checked my notes. It was 50 NIL disclosures from student athletes so far.
Ahmad?
Hey, Jim. So that 50 number, is that from all the programs at Mizzou, or is that just football and basketball?
That's all. I don't have that broken down as far as the numbers with each.
Okay. What is your level of concern about educating your student athletes about the NIL and making sure that they stay eligible and, they don't run into any hiccups in this new process?
Yeah, it was important. That's why we signed with Open Doors a while ago, and really started to try to educate them and have master's classes, and so we've had it with the student athletes, with the head coaches, with the staff, and we'll continue. I think our staff plans to give weekly updates on questions and answers and things to avoid, so that our student athletes are up to speed on what the latest is. As far as opportunities, but also the the pitfalls. Here's what happened, and here are the issues. And so we're planning also in the fall to have classes on taxes and entrepreneurship, and we'll have those seminars with our student athletes. And I think it's going to be a never-ending continuing education, and it'll be housed in our Mizzou made education programs.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Brian Napier?
Hey, Jim. So obviously, as you mentioned, Open Doors has been a big part of trying to educate student athletes throughout this NIL process. Everything's figuring out. With some of the student athletes who have tried to start like their own brands and kind of like grow into using their name and like their logos and things like that. Is there a blueprint for that? Is there of how someone can try to build an image off of their name, their brand, or is it, like you said, just constantly evolving?
It's not a blueprint per se, because everyone's different and everyone has different skills and all. But we tried to start earlier in the spring with educational classes of, here's how you build your brand. Here's the things to avoid. Here's your rating, if you will, from open doors is where you are, and here might be trouble, some trouble areas that you need to clean up. And so some of that do's and don'ts, but it's gonna continue to be educating our student athletes, and obviously a new group coming in each year. So it'll be a continuation of our educational process.
Gabe?
Yeah, Jim, I know one of the concerns that people heard from athletic departments about name, image, and likeness is that the money that had been donated to athletic departments was now going to go straight to players. Are you concerned about the idea that, say, somebody that donates $10,000 a year or whatever, that some of that money now goes to deals with athletes, and the athletic departments are now trying to figure out how to make up that money?
It's I don't know if it's to a level of concern, but I think it could impact our financial, bottom line in some areas. And so we've tried to look at that and plan for an impact, if you will, in those areas of that could be impacted. So I don't think so. I think, I guess intercollegiate athletics, and the difference and why I got into it the first place is the educational side of things. And we're going to continue to stress that, our number one, as crazy and as important as athletics is, and the competitions and the wins and losses and those things, but it's way more important for them to get their degree. And we need to really stay focused on that. And that's where our fundraising core has been of raising money for scholarships. And we need to continue to point that out. And yeah, some people may make that choice, I think, Gabe, but I think most understand what we're trying to do and believe in what we're trying to do.
You also mentioned a negative impact potentially with media rights deals. Can you explain what you meant by that?
Just that it could impact negatively our revenues. And so we didn't, whether it's media rights or donations, trying to guess, if you will, it's a guesstimate of what we might have. And I'm not going to give you a number to throw out there.
Yeah, probably more, Jim, probably more so with Learfield, right? With Mizzou.
Yeah, that's what I think with marketing deals. And maybe somebody decides that they're not going to do one of the smaller deals with Learfield and advertising. They might try to go, straight to a student athlete and make that decision. So it could impact some of the deals that they have. I don't know. You'd have to ask the folks at Learfield that question.
Ben Arnett?
Jim, unfortunately, Missouri has become kind of a hot spot here in the last several weeks or month. Is there any concern that if this continues to trend the wrong direction, you might have to limit crowd size in the fall? And if so, are you tracking that? And what are you looking at to make that decision?
No, it's a concern. As I said, on our call with the SEC, Arkansas, just, what is the difference and how do we encourage people? And we're all going to, be encouraging people to be vaccinated. So we don't have that kind of situation. If we have to pivot, we know how to do that, but it would be, terrible to have to do that if we did. So I think, we're full steam ahead, but it's really going to be a point of emphasis with the SEC, with each of our member schools, and dialing down to each team, where they are, and not, there people still have a choice, but there are consequences to your choices. And so unfortunately, we saw that with NC State.
Are you, just to follow up, are you looking at vaccination rate? Are you looking at cases? I mean, what's kind of like guiding your decision making, or could guide your decision making?
Well, one, I'm not the ultimate decision maker. We've got a host of medical folks, including Dr. Wood, who's an immunologist on that leads the university, and our COVID leadership team that we had 20 people on that met weekly for the past year. We haven't been meeting, and that group hasn't restarted, if you will. So so we're not there. I think we're planning on full classes and full stadiums, and want to have the atmosphere that we had for that softball game, the regional softball games, where it was packed and excitement, and we want to continue to do that. So we'll do everything within our power to educate and encourage.
Matt Michaels?
Jim, maybe you haven't spoken a lot with some of your peers across the SEC about this, but it took a long time for the NCAA to get from point A to where we are today on name, image, and likeness. If the framework that is in place is not augmented or made permanent in a certain span of time, is there an interest across the league to maybe having SEC-wide NIL regulations that everybody plays by, or do you think everybody's kind of happy with doing it state by state and piecemeal?
Right now, I think we haven't had that, and we're going to have probably a couple in-person meetings over the next couple months, I think, just because of everything going on. But I don't see that the NIL getting into the conference level now. The Alston decision allows for the conferences to set guidelines, if you will, and so we'll be talking about that.
Mitchell Forty.
Jim, I know we were just talking about crowd size, and last year obviously is obviously a different case, not really a barometer for this year. But do you have a sense where football season ticket sales compares right now to past years, and just generally what enthusiasm you're feeling and hearing from donors and ticket holders right now?
Yeah, our new ticket sales are up significantly, and we're leaving kind of last year aside, but up significantly over. I've heard percentages, I don't know numbers, but we're up 150% over in new ticket sales from 2019, and so just the general excitement. I think there is pent up demand, and you guys mentioned the thing that could impact that, and is the variant, and so that's why I think we all need to work on the vaccination rates and getting those up. But overall, really a lot of excitement. I know Nick can probably tell you from a social media, the accounts, we were up significantly in those areas, and those are always a good barometer of interest, and doesn't always translate into ticket sales, but it's a sure good number. Nick, do you have those numbers somewhere? That
I don't have them in front of me. I can try to find them.
Okay. Yeah, I'll make him work till his last day, so just you guys can get the information.
Okay. Andrew?
Hey, Jim, I know you said you're still working to get bids out on the indoor, but how much have you guys raised, and do you expect it to be pretty close to what it's going to cost at this point?
Yes. Yes and yes. So we're in, I've got to look at the number. I think we're over 34 million, somewhere around there. And I really want to see those bids come in. All of you have seen it. If you've paid attention to construction prices, they're up. I think they estimated those in our estimates, but I want to make sure that, we can cover it. We've got alternates on the project so that we can reduce it some, or we can, increase it more based on how the bids come in. But we want to expand some parking lots, the lot G area, and move TV trucks and things like that. And all those are dependent on how the bids come in. And but overall, our fundraising absolutely covers the project itself. And then we're trying to make sure we can cover the way the bids come in as well.
And then is the start date and complete date still the same? I know with those increased prices, maybe has that changed anything with your building?
No, not from the last time. I think we've said, Nick's been sitting in those meetings. Is it October, November?
October 17th right now is the target date to start the practice. To start the project and put shovels in the ground. That allows us to use that parking lot for the first 5 games of this season. And then they will just have to be impacted for 2 games this fall. 'Cause that's-
Actually, Nick, we had an update on that. We won't have any parking impacted during
There you
this
go.
season.
there you
So
go. But
that was yesterday, an update. So, but yeah, that'll we want to minimize the impact as much as we could to that lot C, but a lot of the prep work and all on the other area, the site preparation will be going before they hit that parking lot.
so if they start in October, they would hopefully be done by the following November, roughly. That's the timeline. All right, anything else? Going once. Oh, Ben Fred pops up. And now he's muted.
Hey guys, sorry for, oh, you can you hear me?
We
Yeah.
can hear you.
Okay, sorry for running late. Jim, did you say 150% from 2019 in new ticket sales?
New ticket sales, and you know what that number is, but so it just shows a significant increase in interest. So I think that's exciting for us. Obviously, we've got a I think I've shared, you know, budget wise, the differences fundraising wise, we're near the average of the SEC, but ticket sales are where we're not near the average of the SEC in ticket sales, and so that's our biggest area for and room for growth. And so it's obviously a point of emphasis, but I think it also the coaching staffs and student athletes are getting our fans excited about coming back. But you'll see that as a point of emphasis the rest of the summer, you know, and through the games that we have.
Thank you.
All right, seeing no more hands raised, we will let Jim go.